This is an introduction to the legal framework for workplace health and safety in the workplace. Modern workplace health and safety legislation began in the 1970s. Now there's four main features of modern legislation. Firstly, there's a general duty of care on both the employers and the workers for the health and safety of all workers. So now you're having a little look at this image here, and some of you would be familiar with it. It's available in a lot of art stores to purchase. And it's popular because it's so dramatic. If you have a look at this, this is obviously before the 1970s. And this is a bunch of construction workers on their smoko break, just casually sitting out there on a beam, hanging above the sky. And at any moment, if any of them were to lose their balance, they would plunge to their death. There's no personal protective equipment. There's nothing to anchor them on and hold them onto the beam. And so clearly this would be a complete breach of that worker's duty of care. And also it would threaten the safety of other workers out there, because your natural reflex would be to reach out and grab hold of someone if you're losing your balance. So, you know, one of them would probably take a couple of his mates with him in this scenario. Now, the second modern element is that now workers have a right to be consulted, and that's before there's any change of workplace practice, if there's new materials or a new machine coming in, anything to do that would affect their workplace, including where they would be having their lunch. So we will be unpacking and showing how we can practice that and put that into place throughout the core units. Now, thirdly, there's a Principal Act enabling regulations and guidelines, and we're going to have a little bit of a tour around that in a moment. And finally, it's all about being outcomes driven. No longer is a workplace death just something to expect. It is now about performance measures that focus on lowering risk levels of hazards. And, you know, it's no longer expected that fatalities would occur in the workplace. It's expected that there's safety systems in place, that there's performance measures, that there's training to the degree that any high risk that could end in fatality would have been controlled out. So we'll certainly look at some core units within this qualification as it unfolds. Now, law is comprised of state, territory and Commonwealth Acts, regulations and mandatory standards. And in Australia, there are currently 9 principal acts. So that's one for each state or territory and one Commonwealth Act. They're based upon a model Work Health and Safety Act and are called a Work Health and Safety Act, with each having its jurisdiction attached and the year that the Act was passed. So firstly, let's just step that back a bit. You can see here on the Safe Work Australia homepage, that's www.safeworkaustralia.gov.au, that this site contains the Model Workplace Health and Safety Acts, regulations, codes of practice and models for guidance materials. And that's something that each state or territory regulator can model their own acts upon. So you can find your act that relates to the state or territory that you work in from this site here at Safe Work Australia. Now notice I said the state or territory you work in as opposed to the state or territory you live in. So for example, if you lived in northern New South Wales but you worked across the border there in the southern end of Queensland, you would be looking up the regulator in Queensland and the corresponding acts and regulations, codes of practice, etc. So I actually want you now to go to the regulator for the state or territory you work in and be able to attach to your module Work Health and Safety Act for your state or territory. So I'm going to go through now and just staying there with Queensland. Double click on Queensland. You'll see that there's a page relating to the Queensland Regulator, and if you scroll down, and of course if you're not with the Queensland Regulator, you scroll down on your page for your regulator until you get to the contact details. Go to the website of your regulator, double click, and that will take you to the home page of that regulator in the state or territory that you work in. So I'm just in the Queensland one, just to show you how, you know, this would work for you. So I would click on the laws and compliance section. Here in Queensland it's just up the top, and I'd go to work health and safety laws. Just have a search around the home page of your regulator. Go to the overview of the legislation and go to the Work Health and Safety Act of 2011 for Queensland. We have it here in a PDF, and you can see that that's come up. Now what I'm going to do is just scroll down to the right hand side of the page here and click on the save icon. So this is operating a PC, and this is how it comes up. Now I'm going to save that piece of legislation in my desktop in a file that I've already just created, which is Evoke Workplace Health and Safety course. And we've saved that. Now what I'd like you to do is come back to your module and just hover over the icon, over the insert here. Just put your cursor there, and I'd like you to go up to insert and then all the way across to the right hand side on your Word document, which says object, create from file, then browse. Now we're going to browse on the desktop, which is where we've placed it. Scrolling down to the Evoke Workplace Health and Safety course folder, and we can see that we've just double clicked. Now before we hit OK, we have to go to Display as Icon and then hit OK, and you watch how it'll embed that whole document as an icon into your module. Terrific. So that's your first piece of evidence that you've created for this course.